Hello. I feel like text does all these now, but welcome to the recording. Christian, head of the OSO. This is one of our session 2 of OSC nominee recordings. Basically, open session, people just drop in, ask questions. I'll have some myself, and we'll just record and leave that material there for everyone to evaluate for the voting happening this week. So, do a quick round of intros real fast.
Yeah, you wanna start, Jen?
Go ahead, Nicholas.
Okay, so my name is Nicholas. I'm working for AOG for more than 2 years now, 2 years and a half. I'm just like I'm starting. I'm in the innovation team as a technical architect now, but I was working for the with the Marlowe team. I'm a core member of the Marlowe project. Before I was like. I have like made an ICO over Cardano like 2 years ago. It was about like 6 million ADA. So on over wallets, no, I was not using like smart contracts. So I'm familiar with all the repository that InterSec is managing. And I'm a Haskell engineer. So yeah, that's pretty where I'm like a startup guy as well. Like I have several years of startup experience.
Cool.
All right. I'll go next. I'm Diane Mueller. I don't have extensive Cardano experience, and I'm not a Haskell engineer. I'm a Python developer, but I have about 20 to 25 years of working in open source and open source community development. Most recently, I was a distinguished community architect at Red Hat for 10 years, working in the cloud native space on their Kubernetes offerings for OpenShift and ran OpenShift Commons. And I semi-retired or left Red Hat to join Bitergia, which is doing community health metrics for Cardano. So for the past, I don't know, how long have we been playing together, Christian? 6 months, 7 months?
Since January at least.
A little bit.
Gosh,
Yeah.
I've been talking to Jörg for almost 2 years, so.
So, yeah. So we're doing a partnership with Cardano, and I am happy to participate and help coach on the open source side of things. So I've got a lot of experience with startups. I'm based in just north of Vancouver, British Columbia on Pacific time. And I also do consulting and coaching for a number of startups still. And I'm doing a little work with another blockchain group, Hedera, and coaching them on some of their open source work as well. And I did mint an NFT though. I did make an NFT go out the other day, but not on Cardano. So I've got the next challenge is to do it on Cardano. I'm really interested in doing cross-community collaboration, whether it's across chains or across the projects that you're all working in, and developing the guidance and the governance for doing that, and working with you, and hopefully using some of the Bitergia dashboards and community health information to make those synergies happen. So that's me.
Cool. And text is my subordinate, my shadow, or basically the guy who fills in because I have time for nothing anymore. So that's who he is. David, didn't know if you wanted to introduce yourself or not. Or just listening. Okay, yeah.
Not another candidate, David. You got to make David be a candidate too. So,
well, he actually does have a question we can start with. So, what is your view for the future of Cardano? And do you see Cardano as a currency serving all, including governance, or do you see it as a smaller sector of the economy?
That's an interesting question, and it's a good question. I think I am getting used to the various different blockchains right now, and some of it are specific, purpose specific built, like, and I think they find their niches for what they're working on. But I really haven't explored what the main use cases are for Cardano yet. So I think that's something that I'm interested in understanding, and how it distinguishes it in its tier, because it's obviously, we're not Ethereum, and we have a different outlook on how to build the core infrastructure. You know, throwing down with and getting with Haskell is definitely taking a different flavor to what you're building. But I also think you've got the structure in place currently to do some amazing things with collaborating across the projects that are here already and growing the community. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but I think the future is actually pretty good for Cardano in terms of the infrastructure for being very successful is in place already, with the grantees, the governance, and the way that your outlook on open source is a much safer condition than a lot of other blockchains that are not as open to having multiple parties participate. So how about you, Nicholas? You get the next.
Obviously, I believe in the technology. That I believe in the languages that we are using. No, Haskell is not something I've been using at first. Like I've been using a lot of languages before. I really have a big ambition for Cardano. You know, I want it to be like a widely used. Like I want to. I've seen this challenge of having Haskell widely used, and then we have a lot of repository that is made in Haskell. Like for me, Marlowe was like an elegant project for bringing more people on the table. And so yeah, I have this duality, where I love using high level technology, but I want to see adoption as well. So I have this conflict in me, and I want to resolve it somehow. I want to see more people coming on Cardano, because I think like the foundation are exceptional. Like that's something I was like pushing for many years before. And when I saw like what Cardano wanted to do, like I was like, this is completely aligned with my convictions. And then you have this level of political level that I really like as well. So yeah, I have a big dream for this blockchain. I'm a believer.
Otherwise, why invest so much time, right?
Yeah, otherwise it doesn't make sense.
Well, related to that, I have a question, and this is what gets a target on my back sometimes, is everyone always says Cardano is open source. I heavily argue against it, that we are not efficiently open source is my politically correct term. So with that being said, what are your strategies to make Cardano efficiently open source? Or what's the problem areas? How would you address it? Things like that.
That's a good one. One of the things that I think we could do better is growing more maintainers and getting a really good contribution ladder, and like how we onboard new and engage with new people who are coming in. That's one of the things I think is helpful to grow and attract new people, give them low-hanging fruit, first issues, ways to really get them engaged, and do that kind of continuous engagement with the newcomers, but also keep the folks who are really active, and grow them into maintainers. I think and having more external maintainers on these projects, not just Cardano folks or paid contractors, working on it. I think we need to expand our base to be truly open source. It's a different world in Web3 from Web2. I come from the Cloud Native Foundation and the Linux Foundation, where I've worked a lot, where getting paid to do work or getting a grant to do work is the only people paying you is your employer, really, if you're lucky and you get to work on open source. So this is a different dynamic here. but trying to grow even the people who get the grants to maintain their code after the grant runs out, or those kinds of getting better engagement, I think will make it more of an true open source project. And my other thing is you can always throw code out into GitHub and call it open source, even if you put an Apache 2 license on it. But if you're not openly governed and transparent about your projects, for me, it's kind of not really open source. And I think Christian and you and Tex and everything you've shown me so far is walking that talk, talking that walk, or walking that talk, or whatever it is, and getting that in place to be truly openly governed by the community.
So, yeah. So before joining IOG, like I was using the repository. I was trying to develop things, on top of all these repositories, and I had difficulties, So first one for me was like a lack of transparency, like the roadmap, like we don't know what people are working on, where they're going, most of the time. And I can see that this is evolving in the right direction. But yeah, that's definitely something I would like to see improving. And yeah, like kind of a path, for be more inclusive. Like how do you become a maintainer? Like why would you like to do that? And then also documentation. Like having a book, just like so I was reading a book about Bitcoin. They have books, where they explain everything. We don't have that. You need to go in all repositories. Like you need to read the code. There's no documentation around, and so you don't know how people are working together. Sometimes, like even myself, like being within IOG, it's difficult for me to understand sometimes. I spend many hours, to try to understand, and so yeah, so that transparency, that I think that's something really important for the community. And then yeah, like maybe also like be more like a polyglot, like using more different languages, like more accessible sometimes. You don't. I really love Haskell, but like I'm not. I know that you cannot like use that everywhere. It should be used like where it shines, and then not like in all the places, because that way you can bring more people on the table. I know this is what we want to do, so yeah, I just want to emphasize on that, So yeah, that's this kind of stuff, basically.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that reverberates kind of where we got started. So I can actually go to, where did I put it? Oh, the Y open source. There we go. So to that point, we did a survey a long time ago, at least on the committee. So most of the committee functions is going to be reviewing or taking inputs from the community and then trying to figure out where our gap is. Do we need a policy to address something? How do we influence the current mainstay of how people view open source to get a shift in developers to the right mindset? And sometimes that's a harder battle, or it's hard to kind of sway people that way. So do y'all already have methods of how you've worked with developers to shift ideas to a more open, transparent environment, or increasing collaboration with diversified people?
Oh yeah, I have lots of ideas, and I've been around a long time. I think one of the things that's key is besides the contribution ladders and good documentation and an open roadmap, all of those things are really good tools for engaging and educating. But one of the things that I like to talk about is creating spaces for people to come and collaborate, whether it's in Discord or a project board or a GitHub discussion or someplace with, we do so much in the virtual world, but creating a space for those conversations and inviting different parties in, and making it really accessible to have those conversations. So you do a lot already in Discord with events. They're a little tough to find sometime in the Discord. We might have to do a little cleaning up and that, but the continuously, like the stuff you're doing around the Constitution work, the continuously offering these workshops and doing that, really more of that, but try and let, almost an unconference style space where people can post things and have a little bit more collaborative nature in the work that's driving things. It's all about creating spaces and opportunities for people to collaborate. In my book, I think the more we do that, even if they're on improvement processes, workshopping, someone has something, workshopping improvement, enhancement processes and things like that. Those are key. The more engagement you can get, and the more continuously creating opportunities for people to engage is really what's going to make your success.
Yeah, I was about to say something similar to the end. Like, so for example, Marlowe, it was completely developed by IOG, and then we were like, I think we wanted to be totally like open source, and so we made that shift, putting everything, transparent on on GitHub. Like we were using, for example, Jira before. Nobody could access to that, so everything was like put into discussions, GitHub discussion. Then you can convert this discussion to issues. Then you have like milestone on GitHub, and you have like boards that you can share, and people can at the same place, when they want to know something about the TSSDK of Marlowe, they can access to it. And then we made some effort on documentation, the README is like really detailed and structured. So yeah, all this kind of stuff. And then when they see some trajectory, they can participate. Then slowly, they give you feedback on an issue, and then you can say, can you make a PR on that, and then slowly, you can see people joining the movement.
Yeah. Well, something I like to share, and I don't care if I get in trouble. So when I was at IOG started as an analyst, I analyzed all 600 of the repos, and my favorite discovery was seeing that there were two delete repos called Delete Repo and Delete Repo 2 that actually had an appointed maintainer for it, or something like that. There's nothing in the repository, just marked that someone was responsible for it.
Well, that's how you get maintainer status. You create a repo called Delete Repo, make yourself a maintainer, and then you get a maintainer's vote.
Yes.
I got to try that trick.
Well, even assign a contract to it.
That too. Yeah, minor details.
Yeah. Well, connected to that, and I'll kind of leave this open for y'all's thoughts in general. So the mainstay of the open source committee right now is around these issues. There's a source doc there, which I can link right after this, about these are the main issues that they wanted us to address, which is lack of community engagement. And I think we made big monumental steps to there. As Nick, you pointed out, the complexity of Haskell and needing to integrate other languages to build on top of it. That's why we have the Rust and Go nodes in development. But on top of that, there's also the slow development pace, just given different scope changes here and there, depending on the projects, limited documentation, accessibility issues, the centralization concerns, which mostly Intersect is addressing now, I think, and then lack of transparency. So with these, which one is an area of specialty that you've addressed in the past, I guess is a good way to put it. You've seen this issue and you've done something to address or remediate something like that.
The complexity of the code base, So I have an obsession, of designing things, and then Haskell is difficult, but like if you use it well, you can make the code base more expressive, like more like you can really read it as a natural language. And so this effort of this adding more modules, like more schema, more more visuals, like on the code base, and then also behind more documentation. But yeah, that's something I'm used to do, and so lack of transparency as well. Like I've I've done that, on the Marlowe project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all of these are interesting aspects of open source things. Everything but the centralization concerns I think I've seen in pretty much every single open source project that I've been part of since a long time ago. But I think one of the things that, and this goes back to creating spaces for people to collaborate and giving people sort of low-hanging fruit and encouraging them. One of the things I really like to do is do hackathons around the documentation, and pay bounties to people to get that documentation work done, and tested. So write a piece of documentation and get someone to actually use it and debug it, and do hackathons and work with other open source communities like Google Summer of Code to bring in newbies and people who don't know anything about your technology and make them work on the documentation to bring them up to speed. So there's a lot of things you can do, especially around documentation. And again, I think some of the stuff that that Nicholas was talking about is core to getting moving us forward. But the lack of community engagement, I think, one of the tools that we're using with Christian and Tex now is the Bitergia dashboard that allows us to track much deeper and much better who's we're attracting into the project, who we're retaining, who we're losing in there, and keeping track of that is one of the things that I think the partnership with Bitergia will help bring to all of the projects underneath this umbrella, and that I think is key. If you can't measure it, if you can't find them, it's you're going on gut that maybe this project doesn't have a maintainer, those kinds of things. But really to keep an eye and track and metric the actual community engagement and look for people to grow. That's really the thing that I think is core to fixing that problem. Complexity of the code. Haskell's not my expertise. If you want to rewrite the whole thing in Python, I might be coding, but I'm not going to code anything. I really want to just help get the community development and community engagement up.
So there is something called like a domain-driven design, and that's a technique for speaking the language of the experts, of a domain. And when you do that, if you do that in Haskell, eventually your code base become so clear, that implementing that in another language it becomes easy, because it's like you extract all the infrastructure details, out of the logic, and then you can see it's easy to reproduce that in other languages. So I think that's something I wanted to push for a long time.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to push every day with some success, So
You gotta take the little wins, or you can get them here.
Yeah.
Well, related to this, so the OSC put together a strategy to help address that. Their first three pillars were the technical sustainability, governance and decision making, and just community engagement and collaboration as to where to start for that. But I don't know if y'all have had a chance to read it in depth, but I can bring it up real fast. My next question is leading into, with this general context kind of understood via, if I can get this graphic to load. Sorry, I'm lagging, I guess. Cross that out. Maybe close that. Okay, I'll wait for it to load again. But we had 5 goals in general, which is we would ensure all projects were audited and made decisions based on the project lifecycle framework. This is to give a way for us to classify projects so we could remediate them and put them health metrics. We're mostly done there. The next one was ensuring that projects go in line with the governance policy that the committee put together, i.e., where the escalation points are, how decisions are made, there's transparent meetings being held. Goal 3 was making sure there's a security framework for projects, which tie into governance for escalation, how we deal with issues, making sure there's basic API or security MD files. And then we did do a maintainer piece, which is getting a community member to make a change in the core Cardano code. Adam Dean served on that, and he's the Cardano addresses maintainer. So he's our first outside of the big circle, getting someone in to help coordinate with founding entities to ensure change comes through. And then I missed one goal, didn't I? Yeah. Goal 3 was making sure 50% of the projects have 2 maintainers. So with those goals and with these being fulfilled, what would you see as the next areas of attack that the strategy should be molded to? Going back to that one document, which is the...
Can you share the link? Maybe just,
Yeah, I'll drop this. Let me just make sure. Anyone with link? Yeah, there we go. Okay. And then this is the strategy for the committee. So this is the homepage. There's a little graphic that kind of maps out everything in a high level. I'm just lagging. But essentially with the strategy, we were looking to do things here. And this is where we currently are. There's a little bit more added to this. You ignore everything on the right. That's just what the OSO is doing at the direction of the committee. But we've been wanting to attack these in better areas. I'm just trying to think of what the next steps for the strategy are going to be once we fulfill the current parameters. So
I know you we've talked in other conversations about diving into the dependencies of the project, to really analyzing the maturity of the libraries and sub projects that we use. And I think that was something that I was keen to help you do, to analyze what all the dependency are, especially for open source projects. We sometimes use projects in our builds, and when we don't always check that that's a vibrant and healthy community, or even double check the licenses on them. So I think I'd be interested in focusing on some of that work, and getting a deep dive into what are all the dependencies of the project and where we can help those external dependencies grow and be aware of any issues they might have in terms of lack of maintainers, or using the wrong release of it and keeping up to speed on patches and stuff. So that I'm thinking that is a good area that we could tackle as an OSC. So that's one thing I know we've talked about a little bit before. But also, I'm going to just keep hounding on growing maintainers, so that every project has more external and growing external maintainers on the projects. I think that's a metric we should really be keen to watch and grow.
Yeah, putting ourselves in the shoes of the users, at all the levels, and sometimes when you certain levels, you can see that there are components, like that need to have more love, like I would say, for example, I don't know, CIP30, like I have suffered from that, and then you see why, this is not evolving, that thing, like for all these years, and so you see all around, like having like it evolves, and then you see these little components that need to have a notion, and they don't have it. So maybe like it's a bit the same as looking at dependencies, but I think this user focus approach, customer oriented approach at all the levels. Like when you do something, you do it for the one that are gonna use it, basically, and you can have this mindset everywhere.
Cool. Well, I think there was another question in here. So, question from David for you both. A recent proposal was put up with the following abstract. For any core budget proposal designed to improve core aspects of the Cardano blockchain, we must hire at least 2 companies to work cooperatively on each proposal. Any core budget proposal must contain more than 1 entity with developers, repos. In your opinion, what are the implications when it comes to open source? I.e., every proposal has to have 2 different companies working on it. I guess there's a self QA and quality assurance in that.
Yeah. It sounds like a wonderful idea. Sometimes there aren't two crews that are available. So I would, we're complaining a little bit about the slow development processes, but I think that's why I keep harping on having multiple maintainers for projects from different affiliated organizations. I think that's just a healthy thing to do in open source. If you need to codify that in your proposal process, and then maybe that's the community telling you it's not working as it currently does. But I think that's definitely, to me, that just makes sense.
The same plus 1.
Plus 1 on that.
Yeah.
There should be more than 1 entity working on everything, but often there aren't the resources to do that. So you don't want to. I don't know. I would say that is our end goal, is that every project has multiple maintainers from different affiliated organizations, whether they're paid or not. And we have to do better to grow those people. And if this is one of the triggers to do it, so be it. That'd be great.
I believe in small teams, as well. Like if small companies, like they're working together, that's a model that I want to see flourishing, and then like ultra focus on something they really like by nature.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that's my philosophy.
If I may,
go ahead.
Sorry, Tex, I'm hopping in here. I thought of an interesting follow-up for this one based on the response as well. I'm curious if either of you would have a suggestion on how to get other companies or other projects interested in collaborating. So if there is only one, how do we suggest or market to organizations in general to encourage them to work and collaborate with others? What would the strategy be?
Oh boy. Again, that I think that goes back to creating the spaces for cross-community collaboration, and being more open about the budget proposal process. You need to have those in open forums, and if this has been a long-standing issue, then we really, there's lots of ways to address it. I just think that the key here is face it. I think that's why, and I keep saying the Bitergia tools can tease out people who have expertise that we can pull in, and that might have expertise in one area that's part of this project. So really identifying candidates and helping whoever put the proposal together find those people that are experts to work with. So I think that's where the engagement from maybe the OSC and the developer advocates that are around can help locate them using some of the network analysis tools in the Bitergia toolkit that we've got access to now for you guys.
Mm.
Yeah, we have a special culture in IOG. Like we do everything ourselves somehow a bit. So yeah, reusing things from outside, co-developing projects from other blockchains. Like for example, there's these days I'm looking at Bitcoin Lightning Network, and there's this idea where we could do that same on Cardano. And I have this dream of like speaking to Bitcoin people, like not being judged by them, and then sharing ideas, and then reusing what they've done, adapting that on Cardano. Like having this mix of culture, and then yeah, fostering that somehow. And I don't know why, but like, yeah, I can see that this. Yeah, I've been like into Bitcoin meetings, and then I didn't dare saying that I was like working on Cardano sometimes. So yeah, like that kind of stuff. I don't know how we can turn ourselves into yeah. Maybe it comes with using other technologies as well, like more mainstream technology. I don't know if it's related to that, but yeah.
Well,
I need to think more about that.
Thing that being on the committees, everyone may now be more aware with the budget stuff that's coming up for Cardano. Essentially, now that the governance motion with Chang went through and the Treasury is getting ready to be unlocked for spending in lines of the Constitution, Intersec's trying to coordinate via the committees a budget process that goes in line with the budget committee's proposal, where the spend of the Treasury will be divided into buckets, and then each of the committees or anyone in Cardano in general can request allocation from those buckets to certain initiatives. And being on the open source committee, there's an aspect to help put a budget proposal together about how we would do stuff. So one idea is I'm trying to go for the maintainer retainer piece, because it's not really done anywhere in the world, which is where you could give some fair compensation to maintainers on projects. Make sure there's 2 maintainers on each project, because that's attractive for businesses if there's a guaranteed sustainability of that Cortex back layer. But there's other aspects to evaluate for the committee to look into. Just any thoughts or ideas that y'all have, because this will be the topic of conversation coming in the next couple months.
So I think one of the hardest things in this space is when we give grants or we pay people to work on a project, getting them to maintain it over time too. And so there's this tug and pull of having paid resources working on a project, and then after the project is done and completed, they go off. And so anything we can do to retain those maintainers in the community, whether it's helping them boost their awareness of the wonderful things that they did, making them Cardano heroes or ambassadors or whatever, and helping them grow their careers. Those kinds of rewards, monetary rewards, are always welcome to continue to maintain something. It is a difficult task to keep people engaged in a project, and there's a lot of if things get unlocked and we can do that with maintainers, that would be huge, because there's a lot more in Web3. There's a lot more independent developers working on things, unlike Web2, where people were paid, like I was at Red Hat or at different Dell or wherever, to work on a project by the company. But what my experience has been so far in Web3 is that there are a huge volume of people who are doing this independently, and that's not really sustainable over time. So we have to balance that out, and if we can afford it and unlock some cash to help them continue maintaining, that is just awesome news.
Yeah. Well, and you have that balance between not necessarily making it a full-time job, but making sure it's not minimal, that you're also getting rid of their passion to stay around for the project.
Yeah, you want to plug like a product, on top of it, like and then ecosystem, like it has to grow on top of that, and then money needs to flow, through this product and through these repositories, and then once you have that, then you have maintainers, because they have project with customers that pay, and then companies around want the dependencies to be maintained, and so you have this skin in the game, at the end. So I don't know how you can magically bootstrap that thing, but like eventually that's what you want, and so yeah, you want to plug like a real use cases on things, and then once you have that, you feel better, I guess.
Yep.
We have one, you want to support the first one, and then you trying to add the second one, and then you accumulate, and then this accumulative effect, it's like it's gold.
Yeah. Oh, and the idea behind it is it's attacking the fundamental problem, which is trying to organize volunteers and trying not to abuse, but also compensate and reward. That's another question too. My personal agenda is trying to come up with some reward recognition program that's not necessarily monetary, and any ideas to that. I'll just pass it off to y'all.
I mentioned doing things like creating Cardano heroes or ambassadors, and giving people badges and things. As like way back in the Fedora days, you'd get a badge for doing certain things, and it's a little bit like the Pokemon card trading. You get all your badge things too. But there are ways. It's not always about the money. You're really looking for passionate people who are interested in this, to continue and to get engaged with them and find what resonates with your guys. The other thing that I think is important, and you mentioned it a little bit, Nicholas, is really understanding the use cases and people who are building dApps and products that use the network, reaching out to them because they have a vested interest in the network working, and being fulfilling their needs and getting the features and functions they wanted, but engaging those people in the infrastructure and the core bits of the project more. I always think of blockchains and distributed ledgers as sort of 3 layers. It's like the core infrastructure and the SDKs that we need, so that people can build dApps on it, and then smart contracts and people building wallets and bridges and all of the other things. Those people, and what we really need, the more of those use cases above the core level that we can get those people collaborating and talking and cross-communicating, and hopefully growing some of them to be maintainers on the core, the stronger the core will be, the better for the end users and for the builders in the system.
And there's something fantastic about smart contracts. We can find so many revenue models, like never before, and so it's like all the people, you should reward all the effort of all the people involved in something. Usually it's like it's not balanced, finding ways to incentivize everybody, in a fair manner, that's something you can do with smart contracts. So bounty systems, at the PR level or stuff like that. Before it's before that it was just a company giving salary to people, but you could be paid for making a PR, and you could be, I don't know, if you have these badges for saying that you are delivering quality, then you can be paid more or something. I don't know, being judged by the community, receiving badges and stuff,
Yeah. Well, and here's a slightly contentious question with you. So, because I always like to hear everyone's idea towards it. So Cardano is unique where we're 80% developers and builders, 20% businesses, and then everyone's an anarchist is my politically correct term, wherever there's the disruption factor that Cardano brings with Web3, i.e. we want to replace all the infrastructure of Russia for more democratic voting systems and stuff like that. But with that being said, there comes the different definitions associated with the word of Cardano, which is the merit and merit-based contribution, etc. So thinking of that, what is your idea as to what constitutes merit?
Okay. So merit, and a lot of times, and it's a good question. First of all, it's a good and fair question. And I love anarchists, so there you go. They're near and dear to my heart, and they're almost always anonymous, so you can't really kick back. But anyways, the way that I look at it is traditionally merit has been, have you made a commit? Has the made a pull request? Are you working on the code? Right. I think we've long since moved away from that to be, if you're giving feedback, if you're logging an issue, you're doing an enhancement proposal, if you're working on docs, if you're giving a talk, if you're doing education. I look at community and meritocracy now as having expanded into all of those things. If you're helping us on a D&I initiative and broadening our end user base, those things are all contributions that deserve to be part of the meritocracy that you are. And I think there's ways to track all of those and to engage with people at all of those levels and reward people and showcase people doing those things that I think some of which you do, not all of it, but there's always room for improvement. And I think for me, meritocracy has moved on very far from just, have you made a code contribution? And I think that's a good way to also expand the footprint of your project's ecosystem if you include everybody.
Yeah, transfer knowledge, simplifying, concepts, like communicating, ideas to people, like, or making people, happier, around, as well, and they are more productive in a way. So yeah,
Cool.
it's a perception of the group, meritocracy is like that's a group that's gonna say to you if you deserve something. Shouldn't be yourself,
Well, and that's where the thing I laugh at is, like, if you want to be in Cardano, if you're not on Twitter, you're not relevant, really. There's some of the things. But for me, who's an old guy who engages on LinkedIn, I still think I have merit doing that, not necessarily being wholesale Twitter. I'm just anti-social media. But yeah, there's many different facets to that, in my opinion.
We can go down the Twitter wormhole any day. We don't have enough time here to, figure out, where the best place between there's Discord, there's Twitter, Mastodon is still out there and flagging away. And, but it's interesting, the business use cases and the engagement in LinkedIn since Twitter has turned to X. I think there's a lot more engagement over in LinkedIn that's the content of which is more educational and more reusable, and actually is stickier for building communities than Twitter. Twitter has always just flown by my face, and trying to hop in at the right moment is like, should I say something now? Should I say something now or now? It's just like this wrestling match, and it's ethereal. And somehow LinkedIn has magically figured out ways of keeping the content searchable and relevant and a little bit more meaty than Twitter. So
I'd agree with that assessment. I think also, now that X is there, LinkedIn's gone back to its purpose, where it's very business centric and personal development versus you're more cautious when you just throw out any random post and stuff. So,
but it's really hard to be an anarchist on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
You go to, there's like this scale of, can you be an anonymous anarchist, which, I love them, and I am there somewhere, and I'm not telling you the name. You've got Discord, where, you can be renamed in an instant and become a new, thing. And then Twitter, which is a little more ethereal, but there's still a little grounding in reality. Not always, but sometimes. And LinkedIn, basically you have to exist. Or, I hope that the Russian hackers that I've been hanging out with actually exist. So
There is more conformism in LinkedIn than X or Discord.
Yeah.
I registered on X, it was like in 2010 or something like that, and then I never used my account, and then because of Marlowe, and Catalyst, I had to force myself. Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Well, that's where I split my deal with Tex. He deals with the Twitter side of it. I'll deal with the LinkedIn mostly. So
wow.
use our specialties where we are. He's more social media adept than me.
Yeah, well, you can find me on Twitter still under Python DJ, but I think you're probably more likely to get a response from me over on LinkedIn because LinkedIn comes right to my cell phone and pisses me off how often people find me that way. But yeah, it's ever evolving. But I do think you have to meet people where they are. If they're in Discord, if they're in Twitter, if they're over in Mastodon, if they're over in LinkedIn. You have to have a strategy that engages people and meets them where they are. And if it's a GitHub discussion that pulls them all together, because you can share a GitHub discussion link in all of those places, that's the thing that ties them. So if you can take those social media strategies and tie them to a reality-based thing like GitHub, a GitHub issue, that's I think the way to do it. So yeah.
Yep.
So, anyway.
Just for y'all's info, we did have a communications path outlined for how we're working to that. If there's any changes y'all want to propose or make, feel free. But since we got 4 minutes, Daniel, I know you've been listening in. Did you have any questions for Diane or Nick?
The sound of silence.
It's a good song. I actually found a heavy metal cover of it.
Ooh.
Not so much the sound of silence anymore.
No, not the heavy metal version.
Okay. Well, if nothing else, did y'all have any parting thoughts? Or I'll just close it.
No, I'm just happy to be here, and it was great to meet you, Nicholas.
It was
So looking forward to working with everybody. So let's do this. I won't be getting up at 5:30 a.m. my time for tomorrow's call. So just
And I'm gonna sleep now. It's like midnight for me.
there you go. All right. Take care,
I
guys.
can understand that. Thank
Bye-bye.
y'all. Appreciate it. Bye.